National Senate Leader Barnaby Joyce joins us in our Parliament House studio now. Senator Joyce, welcome to breakfast.
Good morning, Fran.
Senator Joyce, do you support the structural separation of Telstra?
I do support the structural separation, but the question is, Fran, does it need to happen right now? To be honest, Fran, we're completely immersed in the emission trading scheme debate, trying to stop that massive tax. We haven't completely applied our mind to the structural separation. I am not convinced by the argument that there is a bun rush to get the legislation through right now. I know that's what the lobbying is about. The National Party will be supporting a delay, a vote for a delay, and a delay to next year, where, if you ask how do you feel about it rudimentarily, I'd say, well, rudimentarily, I would think we should have structurally separated at the start. I think it's a mess that neither Beazley or ourselves, the Labor Party or ourselves, structurally separated an entity. And I hear the issues that the shareholders bring up, but that is the price of a monopoly, and that we're talking about. But
why vote for a delay then? If you think it's right and if you think it's going to help the bush, why wouldn't you want to get on with it?
Because I don't know whether this form will, Fran, and we need more time to have a look at it. And I'll be completely frank, I don't think the world's going to stop spinning if we wait till next year.
You've had talks with Communications Minister Stephen Conroy recently. Did he offer you anything for your support? And what did his arguments convince you at all?
Look, obviously Stephen came round yesterday morning and said good day. We had a polite discussion. That's what you're supposed to do. And but I remain in the position that we'll be voting for a delay, and we'll be listening to the arguments then. I just don't see the argument that it has to happen right now as one that is coherent enough for us to all wander across the floor. So I don't think we should.
So what would need to change for you to vote for it if it comes in February?
What would need to change is to make sure that the universal service obligation is completely protected in the long run. The customer service guarantee is in place in a form that looks after people in remote areas. That there is the capacity for access. That we have properly dealt with the issue of structural separation. That the networking, the NBN legislation is apparent, so that there can be linkage between the two pieces of legislation and how they're dealt with. You've got a problem at the moment because it's basically constitutionally invalid to try and tie something to the NBN when that legislation is not actually before the House. There's a whole range of things, a whole range of technical and timing reasons why it is better to look at it next year. So that's what we will do. To do it now just leaves you short of the total picture, and the total picture is when we start seeing this NBN legislation turn up.
And to avoid doing it now also fends off or begs off another fight within the coalition. But Shadow Communications Minister Nick Minchin says that the coalition is fundamentally opposed to the legislation because it's and fundamentally opposed to the notion of structural separation, which he sees as an attack on Telstra and the shareholders.
Well,
so there is a difference within the coalition on this then?
I don't know, because Telstra's not really opposed to it, and you would have seen the article in the paper yesterday where they said that they're in the process of negotiation. So Telstra will probably end up doing it to themselves, Fran. So, once more, what is the rush of doing it right now?
But do you accept that you and perhaps some other National Party members think differently about structural separation than Liberal Party MPs?
I think that across the board, people, if they had their time again, Fran, would agree to structural separation on the floating of Telstra. But that goes right back to Kim Beazley with his initial float, where he hadn't structurally separated. So the Labor Party got this monster moving, and we've been dealing with it ever since. But something's got to happen somewhere. I agree to that.
Have you spoken to Telstra about why they want this delayed?
Well, no, I haven't. And I haven't spoken to Telstra, and nor I've been affected by their lobbying, because to the best of my knowledge, lately they haven't darkened my door, Fran. This is literally sitting back and doing the research as to what is the best way to do this if we wish to do it in the future. And because one of the crucial things is the linkages between requirements that we would need to look after regional Australia, and we see this through the eyes of regional Australia. We are the party of regional Australia. That it goes hand in glove with the NBN legislation, which is not before us, and we can't start tying amendments from one legislation to another piece of legislation, because the latter piece of legislation, Fran, at this stage doesn't exist.
Okay, so if this is represented next year, structural separation of Telstra, would you be prepared to cross the floor on it?
Fran, I'm prepared to cross the floor on anything. That's your job in the Senate. And people, it's peculiar when you say you're not prepared to do it, because then the question is, well, what on earth are you doing in the Senate?
But you feel strongly enough
You should
about
ask
this?
that question of the Labor Party, because they never cross the floor. They just do exactly what they're told from Sussex Street.
But you feel strongly enough about this notion of structural separation for the bush?
I think that that a better outcome for regional Australia. Regional Australia has to be protected, and we don't want to get in a position where a monopoly just does what they're supposed to do, which is look after commercially viable areas, and will only look after our areas with public monies, and that becomes a concern. Also, if we have schemes in the future, we don't want duplications of services where services exist at the expense where services are not. You can only spend money once, and we want to make sure we spend it to bring Australia up to a sense of parity in the service and parity in price.
All right.
There you go.
Senator Joyce, thank you very much for joining us on Breakfast.
My pleasure, Fran.
That's Senator Barnaby Joyce. He's the leader of the National Party in the Senate. It's 12 minutes to 8.